Uh, like I said, you can watch the YouTube also there, and live going, and so what I'm going to do today, the last week, the things what we discussed, just quick summarize, and we'll continue. The last week, let me share the screen. Last week, we discussed related to supply and try to understand the supply side. They are, of course, not typical, and already you know, and also the same thing, the different ways look at the demand side. Here the supply, all of you know the supply curve as a positive slope. There is apply the law of supply, that is the first thing we discussed. The law of supply say the price and quantity of supplies has a positive relationship with the other determinants, other things remain constant. That's at a very best assumption. And also we learn the other determinants also. In addition, we learn given individual supply curve or supply function, how to get market supply function or market supply. Let's assume two suppliers in the market. Adding those two supply function, you can get the market supply function. Something here like let's say you have two individual, let's say individual A's supply function according to the law of supply, that's a positive law, and the second person supply, let's say the B's, like here. Now, assume that the only two people, two suppliers in the market, adding those two, you get the market supply function. So the last one, in that case, the market supply function. So adding. And here we learn another thing also. In exam, or you develop the inverse supply function, then you have to first inverse supply function means the supply you get in the function of quantity, for example, like here. Like here. Given individuals inverse supply function like that, to get the market supply, what you have to do, first convert into normal, like here supply function, then add it. Otherwise, you just add prices, not the quantity. So that may be the exam purpose. And also when you take the supply, market supply, we learned that the given price, let's say somewhere $8 or something, you can predict the amount of supply, the market, you can see the market. Now, for example, if this supply, market supply function, if 8 is the price, then the 70 is the total market need or market supply. So the individual suppliers within this 70 they can supply. And another thing also we learn, given market price, this area value we estimated, that's what we call producer surplus. So that also we learn. The producer surplus and the surplus is the one producer can use. Improve their satisfaction, improve their welfare. So that is the thing. And we also learned the other determinants last time. Apart from the law of supply, so we draw those supply curves and things. And market supply again, those things we did. Yeah. The other determinants or the determinants of supply also we learned. One of the main or key determinants is the market price. So that's what we discuss. Supply depend on the market price. And also same time input price also we consider the other determinants like including labor, including all the other inputs, raw materials and all the input prices, even interest rate, because that is also one of the determinants decide the supply, the loan we take and things. And technology also one of the key determinants, whatever the product consider. In addition to those determinants, there are some other determinants, mainly change subject to subject. So change product to product, service to service, other determinants. So whatever these determinants change, the other determinant change, the supply also change. We will look at what happened to the supply curve soon, what happened. Before that, when this determinant is the one, those are the things the government used to introduce shock. Government introduced shock. Shock, the government side would be mainly what you know, maybe tax is coming as a tax way. It may become as a subsidies. It may come as some other ways. For example, technology. The government can subsidize technology improvement. Government can subsidize input price. And also the government can tax input price also. So in that way, the control or handle the supply curve, supply. Now what happened when these determinants change, we have to understand what happened to the supply function or supply curve. Now if we take the supply curve, it's a usual normal positive supply, and this side price, this side. Now if we take the first determinant, so here mentioned the market price. Change in the market price, the other thing constant. You can observe consumers move up or down along the market supply curve, the price change. There, this concept what we call changing quantity supply. There are two concepts here linked. One is the change in quantity supply. The other one is change in supply. Now the market price change, suppliers move along the supply curve. That concept what we call changing quantity supply. The other determinants change in addition to, except the market price, given market price, if any other determinants change, not move along, entire supply curve shift. It depends on the direction, shift up or left or right, shift left or right. So that is the basic thing. Now, that understanding, I think, clear directly is very clear. If the other determinants, if you take to show that changes, you have to shift the entire supply curve, whichever way the changes happen, and based on that direction. If the price change, the other thing constant, to change, to show that changes, you have to move along the supply curve. Right? Now, your level, the important thing, we talk about so much the government intervention, and last time we talked about why the government has to intervene through the market system, because the market failure. Whatever way the government intervenes to the market through those determinants. Either they take the market price and the control market price, or change market price, or maybe to input price. There may be government provide input subsidies. Now, opposite happen, the government may specifically tax input subsidy. For example, liquor industry. The government directly impose tax to the liquor products, also sub tax on the inputs also. Inputs also. The other determinants, if you take, for example, government intervention to improve some changes in technology. Now, for example, if the government expend research and development, the particular technology development, that's help the technology improvement, and the result, supply curve shift outside. So in the exam, let's say give a story, still in the Sri Lankan government or Indian government or Chinese or Donald Trump, whatever, allocate money for research and development or maybe specific industry, or let's say the farmers product. Then if I ask to analyze that and develop demand and supply, using demand and supply analysis and elaborate to analyze the situation. So you have to look at that technology help to improve the particular technology, then how it's affect to demand and supply curve, and draw the situation and explain. That's same thing. Some industries, let's say the government says not good for the economy, not for good to the society, but in Sri Lanka is different. In the Sri Lankan government, even the right now also, they don't look at that way. Maybe they personalize, and this industry is not proper analysis also, especially the new government. You can say those politicians think this is not good, and they try to give the subsidy or give the changes. That also happen. So our system is not coming the proper analysis, and what the politician think, they think they try to do. But whatever, even that is happened through those determinants and like. Now the expectation also. Let's say the political situation may change the next few months. That kind of expectation is affect to different industry. Then there is affect to the supply also. It's a change the supply. That's the future expectation. Or future expectation, let's say this government go without the changes continuously. So that affect to the certain product, the supply. With the expectation, nowadays, some of the product is the government is not promoting. With this current government in that case, some producers move out of the country. So because this within the country is maybe very difficult. So that expectation, let's say this government goes, people expect investors, they expect a new government come. This exactly happened, you can say the USA also. So the changes happen. I think that affects the stock market also differently. So expectation also matter. Of course, the number of producers direct, because the number of producers reduced mean the number of product reduced and the supply cost shift. So I can't take this as a textbook, this happen, this shift this way, this way. These are, you should be able to analyze with the real world cases. That's what we discussed last time. And this also is discussed the last time, how this change and the shift. And how many examples also we discussed last time. So this is the one of the exam questions I gave some time back. So this is 2022, I think, 22 exam paper. So give particular news item. This is USA, United States Department of Agriculture. They produced, they analyzed all the world's different product and make the report. Based on that, I took this one. So when you look at here, you should be able to put it to the demand and supply. Actually, we discuss supply, I and analyze. Supply framework and analyze. So that, like your technology we did, and the expectation we did, and the task. So this is another example I give. So what happened to the last question, Dean? What happened to the supply curve? So now, those are the things what we discussed last week related to supply. Today, I'm going to take these two together, supply and demand, talk about the equilibrium situation. Before that, I'll give a 2 minute quick break. If you have any question to think, after that, another 2 minutes to answer the question. So this 2 minutes start right now. I just give now 2:30, 2:35. I will continue, which means that only 2 minute break after other 2 minutes to ask question. So question now, any clarification? Let me at this point a little bit. Since no clarifications, no thing. Let me continue today's discussion.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you continue?
With regard to subsidy or government. No. I want to raise a question.
Yeah.
If a government subsidy or else a technological advancement being introduced, right? Now that goes to increase in demand. Likewise, sir. And when it comes to the political, the expectations now, it can be mixed in sort of like kind of thing, sir.
Yes, because the real world, those one action, again, the reactions come in and quite dynamic. So to understand this dynamic situation, we have to separate out each and understand. So that's what you said is correct, because the reactions come in, that's true. Ultimately, even I mean, without proper analysis, we can't see at least the what or where it's end up. That's true. That happened because the one action that react and this is all economy, right? That happened. We will see later on how this thing happen. Different shocks comes and so that shock, how another shock reactions, those things we will look at later on. Now, what we right now we discuss only supply and the demand separately. Now we're going to start the discussion, these two together, how the market equilibrium decide. When you mention the market equilibrium, here the supplier, they are all the individual suppliers, and demand or household, the one who demand, independently they do that. So through the market, it decide the market price. That market price, what we call equilibrium price. And they also decide the quantity, the market, that's what we call equilibrium quantity. So in the table also you can see the price, apply equal quantity at that point. So here, no leftover, all goes to the market and finish it. So supply equal demand, that decide. Hello? And this happened according to Adam Smith, invisible hand, individual supplier or individual demand or household, they don't have specific power. There are different market structure, but what we usually talk about the open and the pre-market situation. They are decided. Now, you see that the graph, the interactions point here, what you call equilibrium. And the table, you can see the one price and the quantity, demand, supply, equal point. Now, what we do, the taking demand and supply function also we can identify, or we can measure the market clearing price and quantity. In other words, equilibrium demand and supply. Equilibrium demand and supply. Let's assume the following. This demand function is a 60 minus 3p. Why here minus? Because that is the according to law of demand, inverse relationship. That's how it's come minus here. And let's say we have supply function also. Let's assume a simple supply function. There is the positive coefficient with the supply function. Now with these two, what we did it graphical presentation. We have a demand curve. We have a demand curve like that, and we also have supply curve. There are the interaction point here. I name point E. It's the equilibrium point. There decide the market quantity and the market price, so market clearing price and quantity. Market clearing price and quantity. Now here we have two functions. If you take the market clearing quantity, at that point, we use the usual notation Q star, which means the equilibrium price. At that point, you can see demand equal supply. Demand equal supply. Another thing is the market, the equilibrium price, for market clearing price, we usually use the P star. There also another thing happen, supplier price equal buyer's price. Buyer's price. So that happened at that point. Any other point, this does not happen. Any other point does not happen. So with this, taking this concept, QD equal QS, we can, since we have a demand QD, demand QS, we can find using the function, demand function and supply function, the equilibrium price and quantity. Here, QD equal QS. Now we know QD is the 60 minus 3P equal QS is the 2P. Now with this we can find the P is equal to 12, which means P star. In other words, supplier price and buyer price, both same, that is 12. So here the value is 12. The price is now the market price or equilibrium price or market clearing price is 12. Now, since we have this market price, either plug into the equation 1, that is demand function, or plug this into equation 2, that is supply function, you can find the quantity. Now here, I use the easy supply function, QS equal 2P. P now 12, then you can predict at that time what we call the market, the equilibrium output 24. In this particular example, equilibrium quantity is 24. Though this is very simple, in the exam, at least the 2 questions, part of 2 questions, you must calculate the equilibrium price and quantity. Now that's how, given demand and supply function, how to calculate the equilibrium price and quantity. I hope that's clear. So whatever the function give, you can do that. Now the second point, what you have to understand, the price set above the equilibrium price. Let's say the 15. 15 is higher than the market price, greater price than the market price, above the market price. 15. Now, what happened? The demand is somewhere here. Supply somewhere here. Now, using this demand function and supply function, you can estimate it. So when you do put it, example 15, put it to supply function, you can see the value become 15 times 2 is 30. It's the supply. The demand 45, big demand become 50. So gap here we call surplus. That's what we call here surplus. The exam, a very simple question, I may give kind of measure that surplus concept also. So you can see the surplus. And if the price is below market price somehow happen, let's say $10, there also you can see another gap here. If the $10, the supplies, this example become 20, with the 10 multiplied 2 is 20, and the demand is greater than supply in the $10. There we create a shortage because since the price below the market price, household demand more or people demand more, and the producers can't supply or producers supply less and create a gap in the supply side, we call shortage. So in the exam, you should be able to measure those basic things, shortage and surplus. Another point I want to show you here, before that again go back to the slide, explain the same thing using the slide. And so this is where we stop, understand the equilibrium. Now we know given given supply function and the demand function, how to get the equilibrium price and quantity. Now, here, the one I explained, above the market price, P1 is above the market price, it creates a surplus. So, since the more supplier produce, more supplier come to the market, and since the price high, less demand is create a surplus. The opposite, below the market price, it creates a shortage. Shortage is created because since the price is lower and the many households want to buy, but the producers are thinking opposite direction. Now, this is the one you have to understand. Other thing, someone asked the question also, if you take other thing constant situation, if it's create a price above the market price, we know that it create a surplus, we learn it. But within the market system, without intervention, without government control, this gradually drop down and settle again at the equilibrium level. Because the surplus, there are so many items come to the market, but the less demand, then what happens? Supplier tend to reduce the price and again come back to settle down at the market price. The opposite side, below the market price, it created, like I explained, shortage. Here, the thing is the price, low price, huge demand there, but not enough supply. It creates a shortage. So that happened, automatically price increase and settle down and reach to the market equilibrium price. So that example, for example, let's say, in this case, the market, the price become 5 and the quantity of demand become 9 and supply become 25 and it creates 16 surplus. So it's in the market has surplus and the supply want to sell everything somehow and then they reduce the price and price goes down gradually, ultimately come back and settle down to the equilibrium price. Or reach to the price, drop down the price up to the equilibrium price. That's it, settle down. The opposite also, shortage case also same. It's like here, shortage happen. If the price is $1, then the demand become 21 and the supply 5. That shortage 16 is tend to increase the price and settle down to the market price. So that's happened within the market. Now, let me share a small video. There, maybe you can see, though it is not a real, things happen in the market, how shortage and things happen in the market. Let me open the video. Let me share it. Okay, now enjoy this video and see what happened the market like this. I hope you can see. Can you see it? I shared. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Now you can watch and you can.
Serikindaria, you get to switch wahala. Serikindaria, if you get encounter with time, you must to laugh. Hey! You must to laugh.
Are you playing? What type of playing is this?
You must to laugh. You must to laugh. If you get encounter with time, you must to laugh. Serikindaria. Serikindaria. Hey, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with him, you must to laugh. Serikindaria. Serikindaria, Serikindaria, you get to switch wahala. Serikindaria, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with time, you must laugh. You must laugh. You must laugh. You must laugh. If you get encounter with them, you must laugh.
70 years old man.
Serikindaria, Serikindaria, hey, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with them, you must laugh. Serikindaria, 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 you get to switch wahala. Serikindaria, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with time, you must laugh. You must laugh. You must laugh. You must laugh. If you get encounter with them, you must laugh. Serikindaria, Serikindaria, hey, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with them, you must laugh. Serikindaria, 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 you get to switch wahala. Serikindaria, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with time, you must laugh. You must laugh. You must laugh. You must laugh. If you get encounter with them, you must laugh. Serikindaria, Serikindaria, hey, Serikindaria.
Really, nigga?
If you get encounter with them, you must laugh. Serikindaria, 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 you get to switch wahala. Serikindaria, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with time, you
Oh my
must
God.
laugh. You must laugh. You must laugh. You must laugh. If you get encounter with them, you must laugh.
Continue.
Serikindaria, Serikindaria, hey,
You think say you
Serikindaria.
dey wise?
If you
You are
get
a woman.
encounter with them, you must laugh. Serikindaria, 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 you get to switch wahala. Serikindaria, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with time, you must laugh. You must
He
laugh.
shot you.
You must laugh. You must laugh. If you get encounter with them, you must laugh. Serikindaria,
Child.
Serikindaria, hey, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with them, you must laugh. Serikindaria, Serikindaria.
How much do we have this?
Serikindaria, you get to switch wahala. Serikindaria, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with time, you must laugh.
Hey!
He shot you.
You must laugh.
Ewe.
You must laugh. You must laugh. If you get
I
an
want to hear
counter
this.
with you must to laugh. Serikindaria. Serikindaria. Hey, Serikindaria. If you get an
Isaki.
counter with
You think say they wise?
to laugh.
She what?
Serikindaria. 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 You get to switch wahala.
Hey! Ayé mi tèmi bá mi.
Serikindaria. If you get encounter with you must to laugh.
Mo jẹ jìyà lórí àwọn ọmọ yìí o. Mo jìyà lọ you will move her.
Laugh. You must to laugh. Oh. You must to laugh. If you get encounter with you must to laugh. Serikindaria. Serikindaria. Hey, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with you must to laugh. Serikindaria. 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 You get to switch wahala. Serikindaria. Serikindaria. If you get encounter with you must to laugh. You must to laugh.
Are you playing?
You must to laugh. Oh. You must
He
to
shot
laugh.
you.
If you get encounter with you must to laugh. Serikindaria.
Chai.
Serikindaria. Hey, Serikindaria. If you get encounter with you must to laugh. Serikindaria. 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 You get to switch wahala. Serikindaria. Serikindaria. If you get encounter with you must to laugh. You must to laugh. You must to laugh. Oh. You must to laugh. If you get encounter with you must to laugh.
Chai.
Serikindaria. Serikindaria. Hey, Serikindaria.
Not too much.
If you get encounter with you must to laugh. Serikindaria. Serikindaria.
Woo.
Enjoy. Let me continue. What we discuss in the market, the equilibrium, and about the market equilibrium point is create a shortage and below, above surplus and below shortage. Now, like someone asked the question, I think Tarind, though we expect this kind of a equilibrium level, always the market, the shocks come to the market. It could be demand side, it could be supply side. It could be demand side, it could be supply side. Due to shocks, the equilibrium, the market clearing price and quantity always change. Before I come to this point, let me introduce another concept which we have to understand at the equilibrium level. For policy discussion and further analysis is required. Last time also I introduced, but a little bit more. Now here, what we discussed right now, demand curve we have and supply curve we have. Here, the equilibrium price, let's say 12 in this case, and the market demand, let's say 100,000, 100,000 or 100 million demand. Now, this the price, what we call market price is the price the one as a consumer, as a household, when you buy something, you really pay. At the same price, as a producer, when you supply something, even you can produce less price, lower price, you get. Now we start with the producer side, sorry, consumer side. Though the market price is this 12, some of the producers, some of the consumer, depend on their willingness to pay and their affordability. The same thing, they may like to pay more. In this case, the maximum amount, if you put here like 20, some consumers willing to pay between 12 to 20. Now, if someone, let's say, someone willing to pay 15, we go to the market with 15, but really he has to pay 12. For per unit, he can save that money about $3. Now, this $3 he can use to buy more item or some other thing, or even save. Whatever he can do is increase his satisfaction. It increases satisfaction. For example, let's say now you are in the class and you go to supermarket and you think like that and you get discount suddenly the market price. That surplus, you may buy some other thing, even for your children or something. Or maybe on the way you go to a bar and have a cup of beer or something else. So what happened with that? Ultimately, your satisfaction increase. Your satisfaction. If you put that satisfaction, if all the consumers here, we can measure that, quantify the area, the value here. That we call consumer surplus. Consumer surplus. All the consumer surplus. In other words, the macro terms, you can see the consumer's welfare. Consumer's welfare. It's a policymaker who in central bank or in the treasury or some other point doing research, or if he can measure such situation, then he can say that at this level, this is the amount of social welfare, the consumer side we can measure. So that is very important, the policy instrument and evidence. Now, in this case, since the linear demand function, easily we can calculate here the difference here 20 and 12 is 8. Here difference is 0 to 100, 100. 8 multiply 100. Then the value of come in all this square, triangular. We need the half of it, that, and divide by half. Answer what we get is 40. 400. $400. Now, total consumer surplus in that case, $400. You can see the other side also, producer side also. Now, let's say you are a producer. You produce something. You can produce, depend on your economic scale and your efficiency, even let's say $5. You spend $5. Then per unit. Then for you selling 1 unit, you can get additional profit. Additional, I use the word more than economic profit. $7. $7. That become your surplus. That surplus you can use the reinvestment. That surplus you can use for your own consumption, for research and development, whatever. Likewise, all the suppliers or producers here, if they are efficient, they produce less than $12, this area value we can measure. That's what we call producer surplus. That is the producer surplus. So, which means if that amount produces welfare improve. Produces welfare improve. Now, if we can calculate here, again, since the linear supply and demand curve is easy, here the difference is 12 and multiply by 100 because 100 units are the market cost. And we need half of that triangular and then come in 600. $600 is the producer surplus. These two together, with the last time what we discussed, the society has two parties. One is the household, the other side firm. Now the producer surplus and the household surplus is together. If you name it as a welfare, entire social welfare. That's what you can record. Social welfare is equal consumer surplus plus producer surplus. Producer surplus. In our case, 400 plus 600 become 1,000. You see, if the policymaker can measure and show and get this social welfare at this level, let's say baseline, before introduce policy. Now the policymakers has to look at if they introduce a policy, what happened to this 1,000 amount of welfare. Now let's say that after the policy, let's say social welfare is W1, before the policy W is 0, if this we get, between the after welfare increase, we can consider that welfare improvement and better of the society and the particular policy good for a society, good for the economy. Now, the opposite happened. Let's say W1 is less than W0. That, of course, happened many cases in Sri Lanka. Then we can consider this particular intervention or particular government policy is worth for the society and improve social welfare of the society. So that is the point. That is the thing we have to understand. Because the intervention, whatever direct intervention to the price control or intervention to supply side and demand side. For example, giving shock to the supply curve or demand curve, the social welfare component will change. For example, imagine government can introduce shock to demand side, it help to demand increase, which means demand curve shift outward. New demand curve come like that. D1. Now you say at the equilibrium level, producer surplus increase by this amount, not this amount. Producer surplus increased by this amount. Sorry, I made the mistake. This amount. The consumer surplus also has increased. So which means after the policy, the society better off, and we can consider. Another thing, third point also we have to know here, this analysis, usually you can't find a microeconomics textbook. Now we learn two concepts, producer surplus and consumer surplus. Third component also we have to understand there. Now if you take the demand curve like this, our example we took here 20, and supply curve like that. I think our example we took here 12. Here 100. Now what we learn, this part consumer surplus, this part producer surplus. Another area also very important to understand, this area. I think the last lecture I introduced this area. And this is the area what we call as the cost, total cost producer. Now if we have measure straightforward like 12 multiply again 600. $600 million is the cost. Now here, don't ignore this as a cost. Think of this way. If cost to producer mean where this money goes. This money goes to providers, which means the laborers, human resources, entrepreneurs, the bank, they are the one who give loan, all the other input providers.
Officer,
Yeah.
my line got disconnected. Can you explain this graph, please? I was distracted by the internet connection.
I think rather you can watch, like I said, this live go YouTube also later on. We can watch the YouTube.
Okay.
And
Okay.
the other thing is try to explain the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. And the third part also, usually the microeconomics textbook does not explain. It's what we usually get as a total cost.
All right. Okay.
Total cost mean, as a producer side, though we said the total cost, we have to look at where this cost goes. You know, if you are a producer, if you are on the firms, that cost you give to laborers, their salaries or wages, give to your management, their salaries, and entrepreneurs, their profit or interest, they go to banks, and other input cost, which mean those resource, like previously what we discussed, the household is the resource. Their income, as a you firm here, you give this to your cost, go to them the income. Now, that is the important point. That is the important point. Then, if the government policy is affect to this component also, it's quite visually, quite strongly affect to the society, quite strongly affect to the economy, rather than, I mean, that is also quite true, but this producer surplus and consumer surplus, little can't understand and can't touch it, can't feel it. Though individually they got it, but this affect to this household income. Because this cost go to the household as income. Let's say due to some reason, the market, this demand reduced 100 to 80. The equilibrium dropped down, and the result, the market dropped down 80. Now see, because of that, this nowadays you can see some firms they close down. Though government is almost sleepy that way. Now what happened, this part, some employee lost their job. Because though the firm level, for industry level cost reduced, which means some firms, even some laborers, some human resource lost their, some entrepreneurs lost their job, some bank lost their businesses, some input providers, for example, this is the yogurt industry, milk producers lost that. Lost their job means they are lost their income. Now, if we turn into household, let's say the household members is 5, the household, one person work there, this affect to 5 people. In that way, altogether lost, let's say 2,000 lost, whatever the wrong government policy, it's affect to directly 2,000 multiply 5, so in amount of people, directly, indirectly also affect. So that part also we have to understand as a policymakers, this level, the master level, what I see, just calculate equilibrium price and quantity and say this is the equilibrium price, this is the GISA. This level is not enough. We have to look at with what the storytelling or behind this equilibrium point and how we can use those concepts for policy analysis. That's what I try to teach you, try to help you. Okay. Now I go back to the slide, but
Sir,
still, yeah.
Sir, the previous what you mentioned on the consumer surplus and the producer surplus in both these scenarios, I mean, what I understood was actually now the price and the quantity remains at the equilibrium price and quantity, whereas there is a hidden consumer surplus and a producer surplus is created, which are benefited to those parties, but the price stands at the original amount, that is equilibrium amount, as well as the quantity. Is it correct?
Yes, equilibrium price means the market price. When they decide the market price, the story is let's say the hidden consumer surplus and product. This is not the hidden. This is really so society get it, though you don't feel it. That's what I say. Not hidden. For example, let's say you are somehow rich. You have enough money for the particular good. Let's say the bread. Now bread price is $12, but since you have good income level, you can afford bread more than 12, but still the market reality you pay 12. For you then, let's say your money income level high, same bread, if we say the bread shortage happen, you may pay $20 and you buy it. But some consumers like less income, they can't do that. For you, since you affordability there, you have a surplus. If you willing to pay 20, you have surplus $8. Since really the market price is 12, that $8 you put into your pocket, into your wallet, and maybe back home you take a cup of glass of beer and drink and enjoy. That's what I say. Or maybe you keep that money, buy some chocolate for your children. Or that money. That's what happened. Or you are even forget about affordability. Your willingness to pay. You like that product very much, and though is the market price is 12, you willing to pay 15. Something happened, let's say when you go to that marketplace, only one item, another customer also comes and say you want to really buy, you offer 50, not 12. Because you're willing to pay that amount. But the people in the shop say, no, this is the market price is 12, I pay 12. You're happy, you take the 12, and in that the per unit $3, you're surplus. You happily, maybe with a nice smile, and you put into wallet back and go home. Go home, maybe your children feel that you need ice cream. You buy the ice cream using that $3 because you happy because you save that money. Or otherwise you go home, on the way you see the arak bar and you stop your vehicle and have a shot and go home. That also you happy. And if that even like it is not hidden, you don't feel, then the society don't, and you can't touch it, but the society, social welfare, satisfaction. If individual term, I can solve satisfaction or utility improve. So if you label that as social welfare, entire macro level, entire industry, we can say the consumer surplus and producer surplus. These are together, I name as the social welfare. Now, government or policymakers have to capture, rather than GDP, this amount capture and say, because of this policy or this last few months, let's say with the new government, this improved. So that one, if you just show the, like central bank GDP, only visualize this under the supply curve part, the total cost, or in other words, I mentioned the income part, triplet. Increase, improvement, reduction, we call as a GDP improve, economic growth. Here. Economic growth.
So then this consumer surplus and producer surplus, is it correct to say that some portion of the consumers and some portion of the producers get those benefits, but most of the prices and the quantities remain in and around equilibrium point?
It's always equilibrium point. What I don't know why you use the some portion. Of course, the some portion mean the if someone willingness to and affordability is exactly the equilibrium price, and your welfare just remain the same. You are neutral there.
Yeah,
you are
but
right in other word. Maybe the some portion. Of course, it depends on the society and the most probably rich people more get the surplus, and in that way you can make another argument. I don't know how to materialize and correct it, and with the government take that some part because the rich people part killer, so the government can redistribute. That's I don't know how. Still, I never think of this. Only answering your question this came to my mind, but that's also true. Because this, like a producer surplus, for example, this is the additional profit the producers earn. So the mad, like Sri Lankan kind of, because we don't have entrepreneurs, we have the people, business people. They are supported by the politician, and politicians support them. They support the politician and stay in the business and play a dirty game. You know, some same business people support to the this A party, B party, C party, whatever the party come to the power, they get benefited. In that way, going this are not entrepreneurs. Whatever they think, this surplus, they can use the reinvestment. In that way, you can see the economy improve and the welfare develop. They can use their own consumption. For example, the producer get to nightclub and enjoy that one. Or in that thinking, the government can take part of that as a tax money, capturing it the producer surplus, and government can use that money, not of course this kind of mad government, take that money and use for welfare of the society, build a hospital, build a road, kind of things also government can use. So part of the social, like you said, the part of the society, because the producers, they are producers, those who earn extra profit. So in that way, maybe there are inefficiency and small producers also there. We have to carefully understand those kind of policy level, that also, because the small producers, due to their economic scale, their profitability is maybe lower than kind of efficient producer. Now, the other problem is, if say the efficient producers, they can give lower price, produce lower price and earn additional producer surplus. If government impose higher tax for them, you mean you discourage as a government policymaker efficiency. Because the efficient, if you assume that the efficient producers can produce the lower price and their producer surplus increase, then the government increase the tax ratios, those who have more profit, which means the indirectly government discourage the efficiency.
So if I'm to give an example, I don't know whether it's correct. Now in the tea industry, now people like Akbar Brothers, they export in large quantities, but Dilma doesn't export in that kind of quantity, but they do some certain very value additions to their packaging and various things, and thereby they get a premium price. So is it correct to say that they are getting a consumer surplus?
Not the consumer, the producer surplus.
Producers.
Producer
Okay.
side, they get the producer surplus because they are more efficient and they are play a very efficient way. And the small producers get the higher surplus. The true reason the small producers get the higher surplus also because they have higher economic scale, and it's not the economic scale because if proper policy, the small firms can go more efficiently than but in terms of economic scale, small firms don't get the much economic scale than the somehow large firm. Your case, maybe we can study how they do what you explain also, because they did the value addition and they're smarter than the so-called large producer. They are also in terms of last time also I explained, as the last producer, let's say the government ownership, that definitely complete wrong story coming, because the government large scale mean is belong to nobody. Those who work there, they try to improve their welfare, not the firm's producer surplus. So in that, harm to the economy overall, because then that, state owned enterprises thing. So what you said is true. Value creation, they try to improve efficiency, and that way their producer surplus increase, they enjoy. Now, our policymakers, especially tax people, they look at that. They see that they earn higher profit, producer surplus mean the part of the profit. Then they increase more tax to them. They give more tax ratios to them, the less profitable people. Then what happened? Indirectly, they discourage this kind of efficiency and value creation kind of innovative ideas. So that's why now Sri Lankan government always put the tax just to earn government revenue. Don't think of those things. There are many other things also. Right. Any other thing?
So things like in a normal bakery, they call it kadepang, and then there's a sliced bread. So so most of the time what happens is actually kadepang is over, and then end of the day they sell it the sliced bread. So the sliced bread is at a higher price. So is that that also can be mentioned as a producer surplus?
No, I don't know how to apply the producer plus there, but the slight price is a kind of substitute to that are bakery bread. That's because they are compared to, I don't know, depend on the people, maybe a little higher price, because that the inferior goods in the bakery bread and the slice bread, because they're kind of that two different goods. So I don't know how apply the producer plus there what you try to explain, but that is a different thing, because you go for that one. This is not the same product, right?
Okay.
Okay. Now let me finish today the discussion quickly. Now we stop here. Though I mentioned several times, I think I share again the original PowerPoint presentation. Now, naturally or by the government introduced shock, and this due to the equilibrium prices and quantity, equilibrium situation always change. It's not a statistic, it's dynamic. Now, this particular example, supply shock happened. This supply shock maybe didn't happen naturally or maybe through government policy. So in this case, the supply increase. Ultimately, what happened, the equilibrium point and the price goes down and the quantity increase. So this happened. Now, what you have to do in the exam time, what kind of policies, if the government want to bring the price down up to 3, have to introduce to the industry. Bring the equilibrium price down or favor of the society particular product. If some product want to discourage, what kind of policies, how that policy affect to the equilibrium price, whether it's through the demand curve or supply curve. That kind of analysis you should be able to do in the exam. Right, here the one way, this particular case you can see the original and shocks to the demand side, the demand increase, and what happened ultimately, the market price and the market quantity increase. There you can see if the government want to particular industry to happen like that. Now, our traditional policymakers, what they do, they put the control price. It's not the way. Maybe policymakers should be able to think, identify, introducing kind of demand shock. To introduce demand shock this way, there might be different strategies also. Someone maybe think right now, okay, government can increase salary or give subsidies, but there are other ways also. That is the innovative way. It not unfortunately happened our policymakers way. Now in this way, you can see the equilibrium price and quantity both. There you should be able to analyze how it's affect to the GDP, how it affect to the social welfare in terms of producer surplus and consumer surplus all the way. And that kind of picture should be able to get by the policymakers. So that is the important thing, studying the microeconomy. Now look at this picture, shocks introduced to both, or happen to both supply and demand side, both. Supply and the demand side, you can see. So different ways this shock happen, ultimately the market equilibrium change. So the exam you get some kind of cases like here, and you have to look at and analyze and draw pictures and do. I'm going to stop this point today. No time for the discussion. Most probably based on this next week I have a group discussion and give marks also. But when you come to next week, I need something from you. Look at this table. This table has, let's say I say 4 cases, 1, 2, 3, 4 cases. Each cases happen different thing. Now, first one, increase supply, which means the supply curve shift, right? And the decreased demand, which means the original demand curve reduce and shift this way. Now, when the ultimate equilibrium price and quantity happen like this, always these things happen, equilibrium price reduce, but the quantity may increase, may decrease, or may reduce. So what you have to do, the first case, reflect these scenarios. Draw 3 charts, 1, 2, and 3. Likewise, the second case also you have to draw 3 to reflect those changes. Third also like 3, 4. And those you do at home. Next time when you join the class, bring it. If I ask, you should be able to show. In addition, second point, this equilibrium change thing happen in addition to these 3 cases, more ways. Expand this table, add in those and draw the curve again each cases. So in these 2 exercise you do and before you join the class next week. With that, I'll stop today. If you have any question or clarification, you can ask me. If others, you can leave the meeting, no problem. And with that, I'll stop. And if anyone, this lecture, my YouTube, you can use the Professor Premaratna there. Last week I share, I think. I will share with your WhatsApp also. You can watch there live. Okay.
So
Have a
this
nice day.
first line, sir, can you explain that question, the 3
Yeah,
graphs?
you can see that, for example, first case, first row, if you look at here, these 2 things happen, supply increase and the demand decrease. It happened 3 ways. Quantity in terms of equilibrium quantity, sometime increase, some cases decrease. To reflect those 3, you have to draw 3 chart like this. This is the one, another 2 like that. To reflect these changes. Second case also like that, 3 changes to reflect you have to do. Second case happen, supply decrease, demand increase. Always these 2 things happen.
And the line
Like-
5?
Pardon? Line 5.
Yeah.
5, 6, there are other possibilities also. In addition to these 4, to
Okay.
change the equilibrium, there are other possibilities, other shock also. Think of those and expand the table and draw the curve.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.